welcome back. Yesterday, if you have seen my video, we were discussing REST API, and based on the REST API, we were also discussing how we would modularize the code, how you are going to use the code snippet and make it a reusable component, right? And during the video, I said still it can be more modular, okay, but it depends on based on your team and other considerations that you want to take. You can think about cyclomatic complexity or maintainability index. Okay. So I definitely don't go into too much of modularity while designing a solution. But as I was giving a session yesterday, I told them that we can still modularize. So based on that discussion, today we'll be discussing how we can even more modularize the code for the REST API to make it more reusable and maintain it in a much better way. Okay. And if you haven't watched my previous video, I will ask you to stop here, go and watch the previous video, and then come here. Then you'll have a better understanding of what I'm discussing here. Okay. So yesterday, in the session, we discussed like here what we were doing was we were basically in the auth. Okay, we were trying to get the user info, this particular REST API. We were trying to hit this particular REST API and try to get the user info details. And we also did some address validation. Okay, whether the email address that we are passing is valid or not. And for each REST API, we created different functions. Say for example, so user info, we said get user info, we created a function, and then we stored that into our content block, okay, called get user info, this one, okay. And similarly, for every function like get categories, valid email address, access token, for every REST API, we are basically creating different code snippets, right? So that was our case yesterday. Okay. So today I'm going to show you a single function that can be defined for all the REST API, especially with respect to the post function. Okay. So for the post operation, I'm going to design a function that will encapsulate all the other post related to post REST API functions, okay, call and all. So let's move there. So here I created a function called invoke REST API, okay, and I have 4 parameters here. One is the install package configuration, from where I'll basically get the client ID, client secret, and the REST API URL, authenticate URI and everything. Okay. And after the second one is related to the access token. Okay. Third one is the method which you want to invoke. Like if you want to do the say offset into the data extension. Okay. So those things will be defined in the particular parameter. And most importantly, like for all the post operations, they have their own payload structure, right? So this is also I'm passing as a parameter. And the last one I added a key is basically, say for example, let's say I want to offset the data extension, okay, and there is also an offset data extension, say let's give a proper example. Okay, yeah, so if you see here, so here you also have to pass the external key, that is the customer key for the data extension for where you want to basically insert, right? So this key, this particular data underscore events underscore D, that is the external key or the customer key that you have to also pass, which is basically will keep on changing based on where you want to insert the data, right? So after quite a thought, okay, what I did was I designed my data extension in such a way. Say I have this API method, okay, and inside the API method, initially we only had method URL. Now we also added method URL1 and method URL2. I'm not going to method URL2. We'll be discussing when we do some kind of a put operations, okay. And today we'll only focus on method URL1. So this particular data extension has all the methods till now whatever we have discussed, okay. So today we are discussing these 3 operations, okay. So here if you see, I can insert data into data extension via a sync mechanism or via synchronize mechanism, okay. There are 2 ways of either you can call a REST API asynchronously or you can call it synchronously, okay. It also has some caveats into it, and for this has to be also be configured. So what I did here was I added key colon and config key / rows, okay. So this is how it will be defined. So if I have to take this example is, if I take this full set, okay, and then open a notepad, and normally this would be our URL, okay. I'm breaking this URL into 3 parts. This is basically going into the API config, okay. This part goes to the REST API. In fact, this will be REST API, okay. Inside data extension is the install packages, okay. That is the attribute name under where I'm storing this particular value, okay. This value is inside the REST API, and this also I'm breaking into 2, and this one, this first part is as method URL, okay. I could have made it 1, 2, 3, but I have already created a data extension yesterday for a demo, so I don't want to rename those things again. So that's why I said method URL maybe underscore 1, okay. And all these are stored. These both are stored. So this is the attribute name for the data extension, and both are inside the method API data extension, I guess, right? So if I go here, so this is the methods API, okay. Why I'm saying method API? Because the external key I've mentioned is as a method API, okay. So this is how I'm storing, and this will always keep on changing. So what I've done here, instead of this, I've stored it this way, okay. This way, okay. So key, okay. Row set, okay. So this is how I'm basically storing into my data extension, right? Okay, let's move forward from here. So we have the install package, okay. We have the access token config, method config, which method I'm calling, and here I have used method URL1, method URL2, okay. And then if this method URL1, if there is something, right, it's not null, then what I'm doing, I'm doing a replace function with the API config and I'm passing this key as a parameter and replacing this particular substring with this key. Okay, so this becomes dynamic in nature, and I'm using replace function to replace that particular substring. Else, it will be the old one, REST API plus method URL, that becomes here URL. The content head is application JSON, plus I have included char set UTF-8. Okay, if there's any special characters, and then specify the payload based on the payload that you are supplying here. Okay, and the header names and header values. And yeah, so for all the post API, the same function would work. Okay, and if I go back to our module code, like this simple operator config, okay, this one, these were almost the same. Okay, these were all more or less same. So if you see here, okay, this a few things are only changing. That is the few values like the property equals and all. So I have also modularized this. Okay, I created another function called define data extension, because we were doing this for defining the data extension and retrieving the value. Okay, if you have to go back to my previous video and watch what I'm discussing here. So for that also, I created another function called define data extension retrieve, and giving the property name, operator, what kind of operator equals to, greater than, is not, null and all, and the value, okay, and the customer key. So based on that, I'm defining this configuration and returning the configuration back. Okay, so I defined four. One is for the invoking the REST API, which is basically a post API. Okay, doing a post, and then I defined another function called get the definition for the data extension to be retrieved. Okay, and the last one is to invoke. So here what we are doing is, let's say I have the get user info. So normally, if you see here at the end, okay, what I was basically doing was I was trying to call get user info function, which was this. Okay, so it had, so let's say if I have to do another function, then I have to change this line and update to say this is email validation. Then so to validate the email, I could have just came here and change this code, right? So I have to keep on changing all this code. Okay, I have to keep on changing this also, because I have to change the which method I'm calling. So based on that, I have to change here also. Okay, so for that, what I did was I created a modular API integration. Okay, another code snippet. So these are always, it will be in place. Okay, and then for the from the define data extension retrieve, I'm passing all those values and getting the config similar to access token and the method config. Okay, so all these things I have done here. Only thing is here I made little change here just to make sure that people come and change only those values which are empty, right? So let's go back to our marketing cloud, and if you see here, basically today I created these 3 different functions. Okay, and see the modular integration one. What I've done is a few changes. What I was showing was the only thing that okay, so the method API going to change for every API call that we are going to do, right? So here, if I just see the post, okay, so this is the post, this is the post, this. So there are a lot of posts. Okay, so all these posts can be accommodated by a single function with this modular API integration. Okay, I just need to pass the value here and then call it. Okay, and also I have to basically update the payload, because the payload would vary based on the operation that you are doing for a particular method. Okay, and if you need, let's say, For example, if you need here, like when you're updating the data extension, you need to give the external key, right? The custom key for that particular data extension. So that is optional, but yeah, if you have to, then you can pass it this, or you can update to null or something. Okay. So now let's move directly to our cloud page. Okay. So what I will do is your demo 1, fine, create a JavaScript code snippet. Okay, also delete everything. Now I have this as a code snippet, right? So modular API integration. From here, I'm going to click this and the code will come here, right? Now my next plan is to basically update what I need to update is this line number 18. Okay, which function I want to invoke. So I want to invoke this function. Okay, so for this function, copy this, okay, and just update this. Okay, done. Now for this function, if you see, this is the API that is hitting the data with an asynchronous operation with data extensions. Okay, I have two different async function. One is through going via hub v1 data events, and one via data extensions. Okay, so both have their own payload. So let's say, for example, here this one is going via hub. Okay, so since going via hub, we have key and values. That's how the payload has to be defined. Okay, but here I don't see the other one, so I went here. Okay, so awesome, asynchronous, and if I'm going via data extensions, okay, if you see here, we are going via data v1 async data extensions. So this is data v1. Okay, so this is data v1. So when this is data v1, it takes the payload as items and define the items. Okay, all those values that has to be there. And here what it says is the request body consists of items with an array of JSON objects, and it has to be given in the format of name value pair. Okay, and all the required field has to be there. What it also says is sometimes it does not. What I've seen is it normally do not properly check the validation concept. Like I say, this is not nullable. This is a required field, but sometimes it inserts. Okay, so that's why they said partial payloads are valid if they include all the required fields. That's what it says. Okay, but I've seen, like, even if I make it say some attributes as valid, okay, which are required, not valid, required, but if I miss that particular attribute, it still inserts the value. I think this is one of the bug. Okay, but anyway, it works fine, and make sure you pass all the required attributes whenever you creating these items with key value pair. Okay, I'm not going to show whether that is a bug or not. Okay, but when I used to do all these operations, I have seen it still inserts. Okay, and I don't think it was a sync mechanism. It was a synchronous mechanism, and used to still work fine. Anyway, so what I was discussing was, if I'm going to this path, async data extension, okay, data v1 async data extension, then my payload is changing into items and then the key value pair, right? So I need to update the payload. So payload has to be items key value pair. Okay, I copy this JSON object. I go to my cloud page, code snippet, and let me update this payload. Okay, fine. Payload is updated. Now I need to insert this particular payload, okay, into my data extension. So where I want to update is to this data extension. So offset row DE, okay, I update the external key. That's it. Okay, so here I have 3 points where I need to update. One is the method API config, the third parameter. I could have made it the last parameter. We can customize more, but that's okay. Other one is the payload, and third one is the key. Fine. So let's save this. Okay, and let's see here. We don't have any records. Okay, we don't have any records. Fine. Let's publish this. Let's see. So the status code is success. Okay, I got the request ID. Let's refresh this and see if, yeah, so throw records were created. Well and good, right? So this done. Okay, it sometimes caches, so I don't want, I can basically update here and I can do it, but anyway I can show in another browser. Now I need to go to the another function. Okay, so let's clear this record again. Okay, let's go to the synchronous mechanism. So this one is we did the operation, this one, okay, and got inserted into the data extension. Now we'll do this. So I'm going to change the method. So this was async, offset row async. I'm going to use this as, oops, just this field, the third parameter. Okay, offset row sync. Okay, now offset row sync has a different payload. Okay, I'm going to offset into the same data extension. Okay, so let me clean that. Hopefully I've cleaned that record, right? Get, and this item payload has to change. So if you go to asynchronous, so sorry, this was synchronous, right? By key, I'm doing by a key. You can do it by ID as well. Okay, so this path is hub v1 data events. Okay, slash key, give the external key and row set. So here, let's go back to the method. First validate the method here. Here, okay, this is hub v1 data events key row set, right? So this is rows and this is row set. So from there also we can make a difference. Okay, so here I made a change here, but I need to make this change. So what they're expecting here is key value pair, key values, right? This one has items. Okay, this has keys and values. Okay, so these are the keys and values. Copy this. Okay, let me go to my, oops, this may cancel. Let me refresh this. Demo 1. Okay, I didn't save, then I'll restart from what I was saying. Okay, we were basically doing sync update, offset row sync. So the method name has to be changed. Okay, line number 18, third parameter, and then we're keeping the same data extension where we need to insert, and I need to update the payload. So here's the payload. Okay, if you want to add more payload, say one more item, then you can have a comma, okay, and then paste it. Then let's say this subscriber key is the primary key, so I'm going to modify this. Fine. So 2 rows similar to the previous one, and then I save this. Okay, and I publish this. It might like it does a lot of caching with the URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another new browser and try this. Okay, so we have updated this to offset row, this one. Okay, and this is the data extension file. So let's copy this. Open a new browser. Okay, let me change some value so you people might not be confused. So let's make this RAM. Okay. Fine. Let's save. So please this. Open this browser. Paste it here. Let's see what happens. Right. So you see, this is a different format, I guess. It's giving. It didn't give the request ID and all. Right. It doesn't have a request ID in this particular response. In the previous one, we had the request ID. Okay, and here we go back to the data extension and see Ram Lakshman is also there or not. Oh, I can see. Yeah. Oh, okay. It only inserted Ram Lakshman. We are doing a post. Okay, let's see. Go back. It inserted this value. Okay, and I don't know why this was not inserted, but I have to verify this. Maybe something is wrong there. Okay, but here if you see here, the similar thing what I'm doing, keys, values, and doing this one. This is not offset. Okay, so yeah, let's see something is. Oh, okay. My mistake. So here, basically this has to be closed. This one, okay, and after this keys also there has to be another one. Okay, so what I'll do is first validate this JSON. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So now it looks good. Okay. This is one part. This is the second part. With the starting. Yeah. This. It. Okay. So this looks good for me. Copy this. Payload. Yeah. Change. Hopefully it's changed. Okay. So this is and this and this. Okay. Okay, fine. Let's save this. Okay. Let's clean this data extension. And hopefully it doesn't cache anything. And let's hit this one. Right. So now, yeah, I can see two different subscriber key, B2C, and all the one is also subscriber key. So basically the payload was wrong. Okay, let's see here. So yeah, now it created two records. Okay, Ram and Lakshman. Fine. Okay. Now the last one. So let me clean this again because I'm reusing this particular data extension again. API method, and this is also another async method. Okay, but this is coming from hub v1 data events async. Okay, this is also async mechanism, but it has a different path. So let's copy this. Similarly, I'll just simply change this one. Okay, and I need to change the payload. This is key value, right? So I think this is fine because it's async with this particular one. Yeah, so key and values. So you have to be very clear on what will be your payload. Okay, So this is fine. If you want me to create another data extension, I think that will be much better, right? So let's do one thing. Okay, let me git copy. Fine. Okay, let's copy this external key and let's change the external key. Fine. Yeah, it sometimes caches. That's the only issue. Okay. What I can do anyway. I have to look for the new browser. Yeah. So I'll add this one. Okay, there's a new browser or different browser with different user and hit it here. Right. So you see, it's not the similar response. It has 202. Okay, and it does not give any response and all. And I created a new data extension and there I updated. Let's see what happens to the data extension. This is the new data extension that I created. So this also got created, right? So the same, the recap is, see, the same function, I can use it for different operations, right? I don't have to modify this modular code. Okay, I'm discussing the modular code. Yeah. So just for a recap is, we had three different, like this was, I just created it. Okay, when I was trying to do it myself before coming to this session, I had created these three different one. Okay, so if you see, everything remains the same. Here, you as a programmer, you just need to go and change this line, the payload, and the key if it is required. Okay, in all the cases, it might not be required. So the same function, okay, which yesterday we had almost like, say, when we started, it had almost say 88 line of code. If you go before that as well, then it has even more. Say this try and catch, where I was just doing access token. So for this, it was almost 161 line of code. Okay, and yesterday we modularized and we made it to around 88. Okay, and today we even modularize it from, this was, say, you can say this is level 0, this is level 1, we have moved to level 2. Okay, now we have only 40 line of code and very less things. I could have also modified this, okay, where I can just ask somebody to just give me these values, okay, payload and key, and everything would run automatically. But I was told by my seniors, one of the director when I was working Cognizant, so you have to basically understand cyclomatic complexity and maintainability, and both has to be balanced. Okay, the more you try to make it reusable, okay, the cyclomatic complexity keeps on increasing. If even you make it maintainable, and both are inversely proportional, cyclomatic complexity and maintainability index. Okay, so you have to keep those check and balances, because if I just give you another brief here before stopping the session is, if you see this put operation, now if I just copy this URL, okay, then it has even more points to be discussed further. So currently, if I say based on my data architecture design, this is going to another data extension, right? Now inside another data extension, I have also method URL1 and method URL2 this way, right? Till here, okay. Now I still have another parameter to pass. It might be email, it may be subscriber, and this key value pair. I have to keep on changing, right? I can even modularize this part of the code as well, adding method URL2, right? If I say, yeah, I go to this methods. Okay, so I have already started with method URL2. Okay, I'm going to show in some other days, but you know, even when you add more flexibility, sometimes it becomes little more complex trying to maintain. Okay, so for this I was passing as a key. If you remember, if I go back, okay, so for the REST API post, this code snippet, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So okay, from here it's better you see it from here. Where is that? This is REST. Okay, let me close this try and catch. Okay, so this REST post here I'm giving how many parameters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if I add another one, then I have to say it's 6, right? And again if else condition, and again validation, and a lot of things. So we will design a different one from this particular function. Okay, and we'll show you that will give you more user friendliness for those kind of operation where you have long URLs and 2-3 different variables here. Like say for example, if I just take this back to the original URL, okay, so here this is one variable, okay, this is the second variable, and this is the third or the fourth variable. So inside our URL you have 4 different variables. So we'll come with another design. So before concluding this particular session, why I've today focused not only on this modularity or reusability of these functions for the REST API, and I only showed offsetting into a data extension. Okay, and you might be thinking like we have automation in place, we can import via CSV or FTP, and we have so many options. So why should I basically use this function for data extension, insert or offset operations, right? So let me give you one most used use case and the advantage of having this REST API call to insert data into a data extension is, you have, let's say you have multiple business unit, okay, and from the child or from any other data, from anywhere, be it external, internal, anyway, okay. So let's say you have 10 different business units, and on top of it you have a parent business unit, and in the parent business unit you have some kind of a, say, synchronization, maybe with CRM, okay, or maybe with some third-party applications like Akamai or Informatica or Exponent, right? And they push the data into the parent business unit, and they read the data also from the parent business unit. Okay? There is only one sync that is happening, or a connection that is being established with different third parties, okay, in the parent business unit. Or say for the matter, you have a Zoom API integration, and you have done the Zoom API integration in the parent business unit. And let's say somebody is basically registering for a Zoom event, and you get a response that the person has registered, okay, by a webhook or by any other means, and you want to basically push that data into the parent business unit. Say, for example, I don't want to make a very big talk, okay, but I'm giving a real life application. So you have a parent BU, okay, and let's say you have a lot of business unit, and I'm in the child BU number 9, okay. So here I have a data extension, say, for example, say webinar registrants, okay, and you have stored all the data in the real time. Somebody's registering for an event, it gets inserted into this data extension, right? But at the same time, what you also want is to be stored, okay. Once it gets stored here, you also want it to be stored in the parent business unit local data extension, right? So let's say you're also in parent business unit, you have a webinar registrants, and whatever connection you have with Zoom, they basically they want to see whether somebody has registered or not, okay, in a real time. Similar to, you can consider like a webhook okay, or some kind of a schedule events or something, whatever they want to do. Okay, so if you want to push the data from the child business unit to the parent business unit, what you need to have two automations, right? Automation 1, okay, which will basically automation 1, which will push from this BU9 local DE, okay, to a shared DE, right? We basically have to push it into a shared DE. And then automation 2, which will run in the parent business unit, okay, so in the parent, that will fetch the data from the shared DE to the local, right? So this automation you can schedule hourly, and you don't have options like 5 minutes, 2 minutes and all, right? So this works hourly, okay, and this also hourly. So if you see the latency rate, or say the downtime, okay, it is almost approximately somebody registering and the parent business unit coming to know that somebody registered, or say exponent team, or say any other third-party applications knowing about it. It will approximately take 2 hours, right? This is the approximate time. Maximum of 2 hours it will going to take to understand somebody registered. Okay, but if you do the REST API, then from BU9, okay, you invoke the REST API, okay, be it asynchronous, synchronous, whatever, okay. Then at the same time, say let's say you're just pushing one record, just or 10 record or 50 record, okay. It's like a minimum of milliseconds, or if you consider, say 2 seconds, 3 seconds, if you have a complex code and all. So I'll just give it 5 seconds, okay, just for an understanding. So 2 hours and 5 seconds. So you understand basically the advantage of having a REST API. Okay, that's it. I also want to say a few things regarding this synchronized API. Okay, so it has some limit when you do a synchronized event pushing the data into data extension. So what it says is the API observes multiple data extensions in a row in a single synchronous call. Maximum payload size is 5 MB. Okay, as a best practice, post a maximum of 50 columns. You only need to have 50 columns, okay, and 50 records at a time. So they are posting saying as a best practice, they are saying that maybe you might be pushing huge data, okay, and the payload might get oversized, and then it might throw some error, or it will not be properly updated. Okay, so it has some caveat. Okay, for asynchronous, I don't see any constraint that they have defined, and this will be basically asynchronous and all these things when it has to come into pictures when you're doing something kind of a real-time mechanism, and obviously the payload should be like inserting or updating a single record, or a maximum of very small 10 to 50 records, right? So those things come into play with asynchronous. Okay, with synchronization, synchronous operations, it has some limitations, so bear that in mind. Okay, so that's it for today, and thank you for listening, and we'll see in another video with more examples. I'll not try to be more modular, and I'll try to see what is the best approach, okay, how we can do beautiful use cases using REST API. Okay guys, see you next time. Bye.